Leadership isn't about doing what's popular. Leadership is about doing what's right.
According to Victorian Premier Dan Andrews, last night's win was an endorsement of his handling of the pandemic and a rebuke to his opponent's negative campaign.
I want to thank all of my team right across the state for keeping their cool, for not taking the bait, for not engaging in that.
The Labor Premier seemed to feature as much in the opposition's ads as his own. The Liberals went all in on the anger many felt after the lockdown.
Don't let him get away with it. Put Labor last.
That approach failed. Matthew Guy today stepping down as leader in the wake of his party's massive loss.
It is a disappointing night for all of us.
There was 150 negative stories on the Labor Party by the Herald Sun. Well, I tell you what, Herald Sun, you've got absolutely zero influence.
Just a killing fields for us, so, it was a disastrous result.
The Liberals' coalition partner fared better. The Nats holding on to their 6 seats and picking up 3 more, with one MP already suggesting it could be time to end the marriage.
We haven't had any conversations, obviously, on that, but I would have to say, from my perspective, it's got to be on the table.
And it was a big night for the minor parties. Despite Labor's victory, the party's primary vote dropped almost 6%, with many of those votes scooped up by the Greens. Leader Samantha Ratnam quick to label the night a
green slide.
But the Greens benefited from a controversial strategy from the Libs, which preferenced the Greens ahead of Labor in a last-ditch effort to oust Andrews.
You've actually gone to the election with a message which is anyone but
What would you want us to do?
And
Put your second.
So, after being served another massive loss down south, can the coalition ever win back Victoria?
No one wants a left-leaning Liberal woke party. Nobody.
Hope always defeats hate.
Political reporter Samantha Maiden joins us now. Sam, is Victoria just a lost cause for the coalition now?
No, it's not. I mean, I think it is a situation, as others have observed, of change or die. And there do seem to be a lot of what Peter Dutton once described on Twitter about 10 years ago as dirty lefties. I'm not suggesting that, of course. But there was a lot of people voting for the Socialist Party in Footscray. So look out if you're in Footscray. There's a lot of socialists around.
Sam, the coalition didn't seem to have much to offer to young people aside from lowering the driving age. Do you think they need to work on that connection with young Victorians?
Yeah, I think that's something that all political parties need to work on because, poor old Gen X that I'm a member of misses out again. We're going straight to the millennials, and a lot of people saying that the Conservatives, sometimes the coalition is pitching to the baby boomers and they need to worry about those younger voters because there are a lot of them.
Sam, I know you sort of made the joke about the dirty lefties, but it was really interesting chatting to Bridget this afternoon, who does live in one of these bits of Melbourne, Victoria. What were you saying about, the likelihood of bumping into a coalition voter?
Pretty rare.
Pretty rare?
Yeah. I think there's obviously a lot of Greens voters, especially where I live in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. I honestly don't come across young Liberal supporters.
Sam,
often.
if that's where the state is going, how does the Liberal Party get those people, talk to them? What do they got to do?
Well, I suppose it does depend on who you're hanging out with, but certainly the numbers
You're not accusing this ABC broadcaster of being in an echo chamber or a bubble, are you, Sam?
Maybe she's been hanging out with some of those Footscray socialists. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But look, I think they need to really address things like, for example, renters' rights, the difficulty people have in terms of obtaining affordable housing and getting into the housing market, a whole range of issues that I think they need to look at to make sure that they're relevant to a growing group of voters, particularly the Footscray socialists.
Sam, obviously being in Victoria during this campaign, it was clear it got pretty ugly, pretty personal. Did the opposition, do you think, overestimate people's dislike of Dan Andrews?
Yeah, well, I was talking to a Labor minister, Victorian Labor minister on the weekend, and he said that I think that one of the mistakes the Liberal Party made was that they, not everyone hates Dan Andrews as much as they do, right? And so there's definitely anger, and you saw that in some of the outer suburban areas, people that didn't have the luxury of being able to work from home. But overall, you'd have to say that whether people have forgotten about the pandemic or whether they agreed with those decisions, even though they were really tough, that you haven't had that thing that, some people speculated that people were sick of seeing Dan Andrews giving those hour-long press conferences every day and they'd want to see the back of him. That obviously didn't happen.
Sam, New South Wales goes to the polls in just 3 months. Are there any lessons in last night's results for pollies outside of Victoria?
Well, one lesson I think is that the Teal independents don't do as well when there's a cap on donations because they can't outspend as they did, for example, in the federal election. And the other one really is don't get into bed with the crazies, right? Don't get into bed with the cookers, the anti-vaxxers and the loons. That way madness lies. Scott Morrison found it out during the election with Catherine Deves. I think you've got to find a way to be credible and not make it look like you are hanging out in the Star Wars bar.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Sam. I think it's fair to say you will not be invited to the Christmas party for the Footscray Socialists this year. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Sounds like Bridget will be, though.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I'm from Brunswick. So.